All right, so we live. All right, so what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. Still wearing my working man's headset. If we ever bring back the Soviet Union, let the flag bear the symbol of the online remote workers. Let's put the headsets in there. Let's put the laptops in there. Let's put the Starbucks cafe on the flag. Yeah, let's do all that for the working poor, the online working poor like me. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna be on this stream maybe for an hour because I gotta get back to work. I got another class at 9. I got a bunch of classes tonight. I haven't been releasing as much content. I've even been lazy on doing the thumbnails on my channel because I've just been caught up in so many things. Got a job here in Budapest, got school, trying to teach myself Hungarian, writing reviews, MF Doom review for culturalist theory coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. A lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm a man that works like 5, 6, 7 jobs, so you know how I get down, and that's what's happening right now. So that's why you haven't seen so much content as I usually do. But we got to chase this money in this capitalistic world. But I'm gonna try to do at least 1 hour live stream every day, chop it up with the people, talk about something that's on my mind. As you know, this is all trash stream. This is a trash ass channel. Nobody tunes in. I'm here talking to myself, and that's how we rock. That's how we do it. But I wanted to talk about this controversy happening with Vaush on Twitter, right? And I just want to say my general opinions about Vaush before I jump into this, right? So I started watching Vaush, I would say, about 2 or 3 years ago while I was living in Serbia. His content was recommended to me through the algorithm. I watched a few of his live streams, and I really, really dug his debate he did with Professor Flowers. Because I don't know if I've spoken about this on my channel or not, but I think one of the biggest problems in the black political left, or maybe the Hotep underground, or whatever you want to call it, the conscious community, woke community, whatever, the biggest problem among certain black intellectuals is that too many of us believe in weird stuff. There's too many of us who believe in weird stuff. They want to, paint all of ancient Egypt as black, which is fine. I've spoken about how I feel about talking about our black past, our past back in Africa before. It matters, but it doesn't matter as much as we want to say it does. And too many of us believe that our religion or a certain cultural bent or religious identity is more important than our blackness. So we put Christianity first, our Judaism first, our Islam first before our blackness. And too many of us also believe in weird conspiracy theories as well. And I think that is a major problem. And what Voss showed and what he demonstrated in that debate with Professor Flowers is a real challenge to those ideas that sometimes go unscrutinized or unattacked, unassailed when we have discourse amongst each other as black intellectuals. You don't have to regard me as an intellectual or not, but I think deeply about these issues, which is why I'm on this stream today. I might not be the most articulate person, I might not be the smartest person in the world, but I'm definitely a person with a point of view, and I do represent a certain segment of the population who is, I believe, level-headed, who can be moderate, who can be centrist, who can be considerate, and who also want to advocate for an end to white supremacy, realizes anti-black racism out in the world and how evil it is and what we need to do about it, right? So that's who I feel like I am, and I just try to be myself every time I'm jumping on here talking with y'all. So I really do appreciate Vosh dealing so openly with black issues and dealing with the topic of racism and white supremacy, because Vosh, if you haven't noticed, is a white man, like a pretty waspy white man, like the type of white man who would work at the State Department, a type of white man who would be in the CIA offices and that sort of stuff, right? The type of white man who could have lived his whole life without ever talking about these issues and still make tons of money on his streams, have tons of fans and that sort of stuff, more than I'll ever have and that sort of thing. And he can continue to be super successful without ever really truly engaging in discussions about white supremacy and anti-blackness and that sort of stuff. But because I truly believe, from listening to Vosh through these years, he really is a leftist who does have some faux pas and missteps in his views. I believe there's even been a time when he used the N-word on the stream and that sort of stuff. But I truly believe Vosh's views and my views align. I'm not here trying to cape for Vosh. I'm not trying to get on his stream. I'm not trying to get any sort of attention off of his name, in the sense that I want him to recognize me and see the stream and bring me on as his black buddy who's just gonna pat him on the back and tell him everything he says is right. But I agree with a lot of his stuff, with what he has to say, and I do believe a lot of his critiques, his criticism sometimes when it comes to dealing with certain segments of black thought that I don't believe are helpful towards ending white supremacy and the domination of white supremacists over the globe. So I left the tweets in the chat. You can read them for yourself. This is what is going, setting Twitter on fire, like a million impressions. He's getting ratioed heavy. People are just attacking him. And I do believe it's important to engage with this topic. So I'm going to read the tweets here. All right. So somebody on Twitter named Echo Tech Bro, said, leftists need to swallow the hard pill of accepting that men or man, I don't, I typed it all up myself. Maybe there's a typo here. So leftists need to swallow the hard pill of accepting the fact that men benefit from patriarchy, just like white people benefit from white supremacy. Okay. Thus, there will always be major pushback to any meaningful feminist outlook, whether or not you try to coddle us. So I believe what Echo Tech Bro is trying to say here is that basically something that we all generally regard as true. If you are on the left, if you are somebody who is critical of the status quo, we generally believe that yes, there are a segment of people who benefit from systems right now that are in place that marginalize others and oppress others. Literally to the detriment of the people who are oppressed, so the other group can benefit, which is what white supremacy is, right? And also patriarchy is. Patriarchy is essentially, men having their way in this world, being able to dominate over women, having advantages over women. We can generally accept that as true, and we want to end that system. We don't want that system to exist. So Echo Tech Bro is not saying anything new. I mean, it's essentially preaching to the choir. And Vaush comes back with a very interesting retort. He says, I really don't think the average white man or white person, I'm pardon, he didn't say white man, but the average man, so that would also include me and any other man who is not white, or white person benefits from patriarchy or white supremacy. And it's extremely counterproductive to say so, Vosh says. They quote unquote perceive themselves to benefit from it, but the social consequences of these systems of oppression hurt everyone. This is what Vosh said. And generally, this is something that I've said too on my streams. I did a live stream a few months ago about Argentina and how they're having a debt crisis. And now the Argentinians are having to dig through trash to find food. And the bosses can now pay people in bread, milk, and eggs rather than getting hard earned currency for their work and that sort of stuff. I spoke about how in that situation, what's happening in Argentina, this is showing how white supremacy hurt even white people, which is absolutely very, very true. Argentina spent years of its sovereignty killing its black population, trying to import more Europeans into the nation. And what happened instead of them focusing on creating a more equitable society, a more just society, they didn't do anything about the system that was in place where rich, powerful landowners who owned the land ever since the colonial time continued to exploit the land, continued to exploit the laborers, and didn't do anything to create a society that's more equal. I hope I'm actually coming through and clear. If you can't hear me, if you can't understand me, if the stream is breaking up, let me know because I watched my last live stream and yeah, some parts were breaking up. But if you can't hear me, if you're in there, out there, anywhere in the world, let me know exactly what you're saying, right? So, what you're hearing. Let me know what you're hearing. But yeah, there have been countless examples of white people being hurt by white supremacy. When we think about the gun culture in the U.S., right? Many people think that the way the gun culture is in the U.S. is the way it's always been, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't until essentially after slaves were freed and black men and black women could roam the country as they please once they gained full citizenship rights after emancipation that many white men started buying more guns and they started deputizing civilian white men to police black men, right? And it was for a long time forbidden for black men to own guns. So it was constantly a way for them to harass us and that sort of stuff. And this culture has now morphed into a society where we have today in America where everybody thinks that they have the right to have a weapon. And how many times do we have to see stories where white people, unfortunately, go into schools and slaughter their own children? How many times do we have to turn on the news and see white people continue to murder their own families and hurt other white people? We all remember the mass shooting that happened at Las Vegas at a music concert. You can't get more white than that. This gun culture in America, which originally was stemmed out of white supremacy to police black bodies by allowing every white man to have a gun to make sure that the big black bucks don't come in and take your wife and all that sort of stuff. It's now morphed into the society where thousands of white people lose their lives every single year to gun violence in the US and so many other things. The US is the richest, most powerful nation in the world, and we are the only one that doesn't guarantee universal health care. We are the only one that doesn't guarantee maternity or paternity leave, which hurts everybody in our society. And we all know the only reason why that doesn't happen. We all know the only reason that that doesn't happen in America is because if we give universal health care to all citizens, white people would feel like, oh, black people are going to get something for free. Black people are going to get something that my tax dollars pay for. Because what a lot of people think, a lot of, unfortunately, conservative white people, a lot of people who are tacitly white supremacists, they say in America, nothing is free. America's nothing is free. This is the idea that they always try to push out to every citizen of the United States. In America, nothing's free. You got to work for everything you got. Never mind the fact that a lot of white folks' ancestors literally came on a boat with $2 in their pocket and was given free land. They were given free land. They were given the opportunity to move to Oregon when no black people were allowed to move into and just claim land. The government literally gave white folks free land. And on top of that, gave money to people who enslaved our ancestors as reparations. White folks like to say we shouldn't have reparations, there shouldn't be reparations and that sort of stuff. Yet and still, what do? They gave reparations to slave owners. This country is built on a bunch of stuff that was given for free to a lot of people, right? Showing how white supremacy has hurt people, because now that the US is generally all filled up, all occupied, all the land has been generally taken and established and that sort of stuff. Now, the descendants of those poor white folks who weren't lucky enough to get the free land or who weren't lucky enough to get in early enough on the opportunity, now they're left out in the cold. Now they're left out in the cold. Look at West Virginia. Look at South Dakota. Look at anywhere where you have a bunch of poor white folks. And the first thing they say when you ask them, "Who are you voting for?" or "What policies do you support?" They say, "We want to cut welfare benefits, and we're voting for Donald Trump, and we're voting for the Republicans. We're voting for the conservatives." So of course, white supremacy hurts white people too. And I do think it's important for us to press this message home to people, because let's think about this. We can sit here all day. We can sit here all day and point out how, in so many ways, white people or people who are adjacent to whites or people who can get closer in proximity to whiteness benefit more and more in our society than people who are closer to blackness, right? We could talk about this all day, but that is not enough to motivate the dominant society, to motivate the people who actually hold the reins of power, to actually make the change. If we start pointing out all the facts about how Americans generally are poor because of the way they treat black Americans, not just black Americans are poor, but generally all Americans are poor by the way they treat black Americans, how generally all Americans have lower life expectancy by the way they treat black Americans, by generally so many things that America does systemically in its policies and the way they run our government and that sort of stuff. Generally, everybody loses. Everybody loses in America with these systems that we have in place, which are based on white supremacy. Of course, our whole entire system is based on white supremacy. So it hurts all citizens. I'm going to jump to Nelson Moreno. He jumped into the comments and says, "Effing facts on top of facts." Very, very interesting. I don't know if you're referring to what I'm saying or what Vaush is saying, but I'm going to continue with Vaush's tweets because I think it's very important. Now, I do want to say I understand number one why Vaush is like one of the top streamers, because he knows how to get people going. Because that first sentence sounds crazy, coming out the mouth of a white man to say, "I really don't think the average white man or white person benefits from patriarchy or white supremacy, and it's extremely counterproductive to say so." That sounds like something the white supremacists say all the time. All the time when we get into debates and engage with them in actual discussions about how our country is run, about how the world is run, about the reality of our life, they say, "Well, as a man, I don't see any problem with the system as it is. I think just, women need to work harder." Or, "I don't see how white supremacy is actually a real thing because I face discrimination in my life because I'm Scottish." Yeah, the shit that white people say all the time, that's so annoying, so annoying. So he knows exactly what he was doing with that first sentence, because Vosh is smart enough to know that generally people on the internet are pretty dumb. They read a headline, they read something that's in big bold font, they don't read into the fine text, they have no conception of nuance. Most of the people who are serially online, don't have their bachelor's degree, they've never sat in a university class, they're unable to actually deal with challenges to their worldview. So Vaush knows what he's doing. He knows that reactionary tweets and reactionary messaging out there gets people riled up, right? That's why we pay so much attention to Trump. We pay so much attention to Trump because he says the wildest, most outlandish things, and CNN, MSNBC, Fox News can't help but to cover it because it gets clicks, views, and likes. So that first sentence was crazy. He knew what he was doing when he was saying that. The second part, they perceived themselves to benefit from it. I thought that was so pertinent, so powerful, so prescient. And once again, I am not caping for Vash. I am not on his jock or nothing like that. I just got to point out, especially when a white man, because a white man doesn't have to do this. A white man doesn't have to do this. The reason nobody listens to me is because I'm a black man talking about black issues, right? And also, I'm pretty bad at YouTube. I suck at YouTube. I suck at this. No thumbnails, no fancy graphics. I just talk to y'all. I just talk to the people. So that's the reason why I have 3 people in the stream, and Vosh can have 30,000 in the stream, right? But let's go here to the next tweet Voss sent. He said, I don't think white people or men would be in any way harmed if we did away with sexism or racism, and the myth that they would is spread aggressively by demagogues who want to keep those groups anxious of social progress. Very, very important tweet. I think this is absolutely true. I can't debate with that. I can't honestly debate with that, honestly, because that's what I wholeheartedly believe. We as men do not benefit from living in a system, living in a world where we dominate for so many reasons. As men, we are expected to be the burden carriers of all things bad in this world. We're meant to go die in the wars. We're meant to die from heart disease at 55. We're meant to not, we're taught to not get psychological treatment for our mental health issues. We're taught to constantly repress our emotions. We are taught to work 10, 12, 13, 16-hour shifts, that sort of stuff. Being a man in this world is very hard, but it's not hard naturally because we're men. It's hard because we create a system where we put all these burdens on men and all these gender expectations on men. That's something that I wholeheartedly have thought before I even read this tweet, and it's really good to see this. And it also works well too with talking about racism as well. Racism, but like I demonstrated before, hurts white people too. It definitely hurts black people, and it also hurts everybody in between. When we talk about the people who are adjacent to white, when we talk about the Arabs, the Turks, the Asians, the Latin Americans, everybody else on earth who is clinging to whiteness, literally killing themselves trying to cling to whiteness, it has hurt them too. It has hurt them too. It's hurt the Arabs definitely. Let's think about this. When we think about how Iraq was invaded, when we think about what's happening in Yemen right now, when we think about what's happening in the Middle East, this is white supremacy in play. This is white supremacy in play. And the crazy thing is, if you go to those places where these atrocities are happening and talk to the regular Iraqis, the regular Palestinians, the regular Yemenis, and that sort of stuff, the regular Afghanis, they vaunt and they laud and they look up to white skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, all the things that are symbolic of white supremacy. They look up to European civilization, they trash their own, and that sort of stuff. This is a part of the psychological breaking that has happened to people all across the planet because of white supremacy. Now, when we think about the Asians and that sort of stuff, when we think about what's happened in Asia, nuclear bombs dropped on civilian populations in Japan, napalm bombing all over Vietnam, colonialization that pillaged these nations of their resources, and neocolonialism, which is happening today, mostly done by Western nations. Listen, this is white supremacy in play. But now let's think about these two groups when they actually immigrate or travel to these countries where these atrocities are happening. What do a lot of them do? What do the average Iraqi, what does the average Vietnamese person, what does the average Japanese person do when they move to France, when they move to the UK, when they move to the US and that sort of stuff? They become naturally conservative. They become naturally regressive. And they even start to hate on themselves and cling even more towards whiteness and distance themselves from black people, the people who generally, while we were there in those countries that I just mentioned, we're always advocating on those people's behalf all across the world and from worlds away. Right. So yeah, this is hurting everybody in between. They don't see it because they only see the benefits. People generally only see the shiny things in front of them. They see the opportunity to get a good job if I change my name to John Smith. They see more romantic opportunities opening if I speak the colonizer's language, accentless. They see, them being considered more beautiful if they bleach their skin and do all sorts of deleterious things to their actual body. But what is it actually doing to the human spirit? What is it actually doing to the human body? So, of course, racism is destroying people from the inside and from the outside, and white supremacy all across the planet has hurt everybody. So, Vosh is not speaking anything but truth here. He's saying something that Simon Hill keeps it trill with tweets. So, he says, like, think about trans people. Cis people benefit from not being subjected to, but no cis person would be hurt by broadly better treatment of trans people. And many GNC cis, I don't know what GNC stands for, but many, maybe genetically, cis people would probably also get treated better as a consequence. I think this is generally true. I don't delve that much into, how can I say this? Trans thoughts or thinking about trans people and their issues. But generally, yes, we should treat trans people better. We should have a society where, that sexism and against not only cisgendered women, but also against transgendered women and also against transgendered men needs to be abolished because I cannot imagine that this world we live in now is better than the world that we would live in if trans people were treated equally, if trans people weren't being murdered every single year in countries all across the world. And that also goes to other people in the LGBTQIA plus community and that sort of stuff, right? I'm just giving my opinion. I imagine a better world. That's why I'm at. That's why I identify as a communist, as a socialist, as a Marxist. I can imagine a better world. And when we think about the Marxist and socialist analysis of this world that we live in, right, people think these systems that we have are naturally good because people continue to try to keep them in place, right? We don't want to break the status quo. We don't want to break the vase. We don't want to crack the mirror and that sort of stuff. But these systems that we've kept in place have generally kept us in the same place. I hope I'm making sense here. I hope y'all are following me here. Hope y'all are following me here. But generally, the capitalist order of this world wants to try to keep the system in play. The bourgeoisie don't want to see the proletariat unionize, work together, and actually create a more equal society. Right? That's not the type of society that they actually want because they wholeheartedly believe that the way the world works that allows them to accumulate so much money and accumulate so much capital is actually better than the world where these resources are distributed more evenly and more equally and more equitable for people and that sort of stuff. But it's not true. It's not true. We always say, money is not the root of happiness, right? Money is the root of all evil. Having more money doesn't necessarily make you more happy. And when we look at these millionaires and billionaires, I mean, does Elon Musk generally look happy? Does Mark Zuckerberg generally look happy? Does Trump look happy? None of these guys actually look happy, but they have all the things that in our capitalist world today we would consider to be things that would make somebody happy. All the cars, being able to own an island, private jets, billions and billions of dollars, the ability to influence the world with your words and your money, right? But it's not actually creating a happier society. So the systems that we have now don't actually make us happy. And there are some people who say that these systems are natural, right? Racism, sexism, wealth inequality are natural, but I would argue that they are not natural. They're the consequences of choices that people have made over time. It's not natural for somebody to have $1 billion. It's not natural for you to hate me because I'm black, or for men to hate on women just because they are a different biological sex, right? It's not natural. These are choices and programming that we've all been given that make us act in certain ways. So, what Vosh is saying is generally that we actually need to return to a more natural state, a state where we are not living in this type of world where these isms divide us, if that makes sense. I know it might sound like I'm trying to kumbaya what he's saying here, and I can understand why people would find this problematic because, the messenger sometimes is more important than the message, right? And Vosh, because he is a white person, putting his thumb on the issue here, he's going to cause people to be more triggered rather than, no name Simon Hill keeps a trill, keeps tweets the same response, right? Nobody's going to trip off of my black ass saying this, but they might trip because it's a white man doing this, of course. But I do think Vosh is very brave for continuing to speak about black issues. And he might not always get it right. He might not always get it wrong. But I think this is a very important thing. All white people need to learn how to communicate topics, their feelings, their honest feelings and expressions about racism and white supremacy in this world. Because one of the most annoying things is when white folks, start hearing about the experiences of black people or other people who are dealing with racism, xenophobia, anti-blackness, sexism, and that sort of stuff, and they just clam up. It's so annoying. It's so annoying because they can talk about almost everything else under the sun. We could talk about geopolitics, we could talk about history, we could talk about the current wars waging across the planet. But as soon as we talk about racism and xenophobia and anti-blackness, they clam up. And I think that's because a lot of times white people are scared of the response that people like Vaush get. When Vaush gives any take on racism, people instantly jump out the woodwork to attack him rather than actually dealing with the ideas, right? And it's very different than if a black person comes out and talks about racism or white supremacy because they sort of take it as a given that because of your lived experience, you're going to have more knowledge and familiarity about the topic. But I do think every white person in the world, or at least in white America, generally has had experience with dealing with anti-blackness and white supremacy because they are among the people who practice it. It might not be them specifically. I am not the type of person to say that every white person is racist. No, I want to make this absolutely clear. Not every white person is an active anti-black racist. I'm not saying that. But they definitely know somebody. They definitely know somebody in their family, in their friend group, at their job, at their church, somewhere. Every white person knows somebody who is anti-black and who is a racist. Now, because of that experience, they should be able to communicate how they actually feel about these issues when they come out. And we shouldn't just dogpile on white people whenever they decide to dip their toe into the mix and attack them and shred them up like piranhas. I don't think that's actually cool. That's not cool. That's not progressive. That's not allowing people to exchange ideas freely and that sort of stuff. I know people might say that, oh, Simon, I thought you were Mr. Cancel Culture and all that sort of stuff. I'm not Mr. Cancel Culture at all. I believe that people should be able to express their ideas, especially if they make it explicitly clear from the beginning that they want to create an anti racist world, a world without white supremacy, a world that is better and more equitable and that sort of stuff. We shouldn't just shun what they have to say just because they're white or attack them for giving a bad take just because they're white, right? Especially if they are on our side. The worst thing that we're doing right now in the fight against white supremacy or discussing these topics or discussing ways to create a more equal world is pushing out people automatically who give bad takes. I might have given a bad take. I might have said something that I would now retract or I would now re-edit or modify because my worldview constantly changes. But I generally say everything that's in my heart and in my brain right here, right now, whenever I come and chat with y'all, right? But generally, we shouldn't shut down people if you dig up something that they said in the past or if they say something right now that might be a bit off. We shouldn't just toss them out, right? Because people have the chance to be redeemed, re-educated. People have the opportunity to grow in their opinions, find nuance in the discussion and that sort of stuff, or be enlightened, right? And once again, I don't find anything at fault with what Vosh said here, because we can think of numerous reasons that white supremacy continues to hurt white people, and how the main motivation should be for us to not only enlighten our people, black people, and other people who are dealing with anti-blackness and discrimination and racism and xenophobia and nationalism and all that sort of stuff. We should enlighten our people, but also enlighten white people why that is hurting them as well, because there is a self-interest motivation for people to do something, right? Just because, you know what, a lot of people don't start donating to the Cancer Foundation until they find out their mama got cancer, their brother got cancer, or they got cancer, right? We need to let the white folks know that they actually have cancer too. We're dealing with the cancer of them constantly harassing us, berating us, killing us, doing horrible things to us and other people across the planet in the names of continuing the domination that they've established since colonialism. We need to show that establishing that domination and colonialism has led to their sons, their daughters, their fathers, their brothers, their cousins going to wars in foreign countries where they're never coming back, or coming back with limbs missing, their mind gone, addicted to drugs, all sorts of stuff. We need to show that the way the world works, where, black people in America are somewhat left at the bottom of the socio-economic ladder, right? How that drag on society continues to hurt the rest of society when you continue having to fund public housing, right? Not saying that we shouldn't defund public housing, but why in the first place are black people living in public housing? Why in the first place do black people have higher infant mortality rates? Why in the first place are black people more likely to die from heart disease? Why are black people in the first place more likely to have all these sorts of negative outcomes in their life? Not because of their education level, not because of anything naturally wrong with them, because there's nothing naturally wrong with black people. Why do we have these disparate outcomes in the richest, most powerful nation in the world for a group of people? When if these group of people actually were uplifted, if these group of people actually were allowed to grow and flourish in this society, we could create a better society for everybody. I think that's absolutely clear. We got to paint the picture. As leftists, we have to continue to paint the picture to the people who try to fight us at every single turn. We have to paint the picture that what we're trying to do is not take anything from them, because this is the biggest fear in white folks' mind. They think if black folks get reparations, this is money coming out of their trust funds. They think if black folks actually are able to buy nicer homes, that they won't be able to buy nicer homes. If black people are able to go to better schools, there won't be any space for their children. We have to make this explicitly clear that we are not to take anything from anybody. We are coming to get our due rights as people on the planet, right? And I'm not trying to limit myself to America, but I do think America is the home where white supremacy is in full display and in full play by how we treat the third world and how we treat our own citizens, specifically Black Americans, right? And also the natives and also Latin people and all that sort of stuff. But I don't delve that much into that because you know what? I'm not as smart as Vaush. I don't jump into other people's controversies. I only talk about stuff that I think pertains to us. But once again, I think this is very important for this discussion to be had, and I'd be very interested to know what people think because I know I have some very very smart people in my chat, in my community tab, in my generally in this tribe that I'm trying to build here on this channel. Whenever I come and just talk to the people, whenever I come out here and actually say my two piece about something. But I do think once again we have to paint this picture for the people out there who are who have been lied to, have who have been misled, who have been propagandized to the upteenth degree because their mind is fried from watching Fox News and OAN and all the other crazy right wing media sources out there and what they see on social media and stuff like that. We have to paint this picture to them that once again, pointing out that Derek Chauvin should not have killed George Floyd is not just cherry picking an example of a white cop killing a black cop just so that we can get better protections for only black people. We're pointing out that George Floyd should not have died because around 2,000 people, I believe, every single year in the US get murdered by police. It's a very high number. It's in the thousands. I'm pretty damn sure. I have not checked this specifically, and I don't do any sort of like research when I'm on stream and stuff like that. But when I was covering mass shootings, when I was covering the gun violence that happens in the US to citizens and police, there is a large amount of people who get shot every single year by police and they die, right? That's absolutely insane to happen in the United States of America, a country that should be the most free and also the most safe on the planet. But we are pointing out that George Floyd's death did not need to happen just to, protect black people, but to protect all American citizens because these cops are killing young white boys, young white girls. The videos are out there, the data is out there, the statistics are out there. Everybody's getting hurt by police brutality. It's not just black people, right? When we point out that, Hurricane Katrina did not need to be the tragedy that it needed to be, right? It's because we're not just saying that, oh, we wish the levees bursted on the other side so that the white folks' rich homes in New Orleans got flooded and they lost everything. No, we're saying that the U.S. should do something about environmental change, that environmental racism ends up killing everybody, right? Thinking that you can destroy the planet just because, black people are living near Cancer Alley in Louisiana, where you want to open up a new plastic producing plants, where you want to do more oil and gas refining, and it's just going to pollute the air. Those pollutants don't care if you're white or black. They're going to kill everybody, right? That sort of stuff. When we point out all these examples of bad policy that continues to happen in the US and in other places around the world, how it hurts everybody, this is what we're talking about here. And we need to continue to paint that picture. We need to continue to point that message home that, listen, when the police come and knock us up outside our head or shoot us in the back or wrongfully detain us or keep us in jail without bail and all sorts of stuff in the criminal justice system, they do it to us first, but eventually they'll do it to your kids. America's drug policy, right? When it was crack cocaine in the 80s and 90s and it was ravaging the black community and stuff like that. And that's what we all see through the media and that sort of stuff. When we see that play out, right? Everybody said, lock up the criminals, lock up the criminals, lock up the drug users and the drug sellers and all that sort of stuff. Now, what do we have happening in the US nowadays? We have people overdosing on crystal meth and what's the other one? Oh, it starts with a T. I forgot the name. The name of the no, fentanyl. Yeah, we have people overdosing on fentanyl and all sorts of stuff in the U.S. Right? And now, who is that affecting more? Black people really aren't overdosing on fentanyl and crystal meth and that sort of stuff. These are mostly white people drugs, right? But America's drug policy has been almost zero tolerance. Zero tolerance. White boys and black boys get locked up for weed. White boys and black boys get locked up for coke and all sorts of drugs and drug trafficking and in drug use. But what do we have? What do we have instead in the U.S.? We do have a system that is two-tiered, where black people end up going to jail more and getting overcharged more and convicted more than the white folks who do the same thing. But it's still hurting everybody, right? While it is like I think 60% of young black men end up in the criminal justice system some point in their lives, there's still a lot of young white men who get caught up in that too. Young white people in general get caught up in the criminal justice system too, have those stains on their records. But that's because the drug policy was put in place to hurt the Black Panther movement and the leftist movement of the 60s and that sort of stuff. So it was specifically targeted towards radical black people, and now it has hurt everybody. So I think that's what Vaush is trying to get at here, and I do think it's a very, very, very good point. So many of my videos that I did in the past that you can find in my catalog, you research your boy and look at the stuff I was releasing in the past. I probably said the same exact thing, but nobody listens to me. Nobody listens to me because I'm just some nigga with a cheap ass microphone chatting with no fancy stuff on the screen. But I just talk to the people. I'm coming out here talking to the people. But generally, the same message Voss is putting out is somebody who takes his blackness very seriously, who takes the fight against white supremacy very seriously, and thinks about these ideas literally day and night, all day. Literally all day. I don't see the reason for people to be attacking Vosh this way. But maybe Vosh caused the stir. He decided to stir the pot, just to get more traction for his channel, just to get people like me talking about it, just to continue to, have the algorithm, feed the beast. This is the crazy thing, right? These serious discussions about, what should be the goal of messaging for leftists, what should be the way that leftists move forward and actually trying to communicate our ideas so people can actually fall to us and not towards the right, the reactionary right that's hateful and vengeful towards everybody and everything, right? uh, when we think about these ideas, they're playing out in a space on X, owned by right wing crazy Elon Musk, Boer, apartheid Elon Musk, right? It's playing out on YouTube, which probably donates to both the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's just about maintaining their status quo as the top, videos watching site on the internet, right? All these companies are benefiting from this leftist dialogue, all the money that's generated from it, whether it be ads, whether it be donations, whether it be all sorts of metadata input that they can harvest and then sell to advertisers and all that sort of stuff. We're playing into an even bigger system, right? It goes even bigger than this. And it makes you even question why any of this is actually happening. Why are we actually online debating these ideas when at the same time we're talking about dismantling this capitalist order, dismantling the racist order, dismantling the sexist order? And what and still are we doing? We're making money with and for the people who want to maintain the capitalistic order, maintain the white supremacist order, maintain the sexist order. What are we actually doing here? It literally makes no sense. We're all living in the twilight zone. We're living in a time and day and age where this whole media thing doesn't make any sense at all to anybody. It makes no sense, right? I come on here, try to chat with the people, try to talk with the people. I'm here talking to myself for an hour. Talking about these big ideas that I take very seriously and other people don't find that engaging. But these should be engaging ideas, and this should be the message of this live stream. If you're a white person watching this, I want you to try to learn how to talk about what happens to black folks or people not like you in a way that's respectful, kind, but also challenging, right? Because we are never going to agree. right? I might talk to a white person who might never agree about reparations for black people or that white supremacy is really as widespread as it is. And that's because a lot of the times white folks have the inability to see outside themselves. They find it impossible to imagine that there is a world order or a system that actually maintains their status quo, that maintains them being seen as the pinnacle of human civilization. They find this very hard to imagine just because of their own personal experiences. They might be poor, they might be broke, they might be addicted to drugs, but even still, they have $1 million worth of whiteness, as one very smart man has said before, right? But I want you to try to learn how to engage with these ideas if you are on the left as a white person, the way Vaush has. And if you are on the left and you're black watching this, I want to give this message out here. Let's not just try to be reactionary in our messaging about talking about white supremacy. It's so knee jerk and reactionary, in my opinion, to say white men benefit from white supremacy. Patriarchy is bad. We just need to blow the whole system up and we need to create more equality for people who are marginalized, right? It's so easy just to say that, but it's harder to get that message across to people that we can actually try to influence to come on our side, to actually try to see the other side. When I was doing my videos about gun violence in the US and how it hurts all American citizens, whether the mass shooting I was covering that day was about a black club getting shot up or a white man murdering his entire family or the next ritualistic school shooting, whatever it was, I always pointed out that it hurts all Americans. Our gun policy in America hurts all Americans. And I had a few white people in my comments back then come up and say, you know what, you actually have a point, Simon. You actually made me change my mind about that. That was very, very few. Most of the time, it was white folks hella pissed off that a black man would even open his mouth to not rap or not sing or not talk about basketball, football, celebrity, or sports, right? They were very mad to see that. But if I got through to a few white folks, I got through to a few white folks about this idea. And I think that's the important thing. We can't try to change everybody's mind, but we can create our messaging that is appealing enough to a lot of people. And what I find in Vosh's messaging right here is that there is a way to appeal to more people because he gets it. As a white man, he doesn't have to get it. He doesn't have to entertain it. In fact, he could be the total opposite. He could have left the sentence off like, I don't really think average white man or white person benefits from patriarchy or white supremacy. He could have left it at that. Because that's the reality of the world that white folks do live in. Yes, there are tangible benefits that being white or white adjacent does have in this world. More job opportunities, the perception that your complexion gives you protection, the idea that Europe and Western civilization has been a benefit to mankind rather than a detriment, so people don't look upon your history as negative. You know the the we nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about this, but all the nations that are majority white in this world, generally by and large, are in lockstep together, right? Australia, New Zealand, America, generally all of Europe, they're in lockstep together. Hell, even Latin America has a special relationship with Europe, right? Most of the Latin Americans can travel to Europe visa free. They can just pop up with their Venezuelan passports and just pop up there, right? But let's think about this. What economic benefit does Europe gain by allowing Venezuelans or Brazilians to travel there, visa free? When you have a country like Turkey right there, and some people might say I'm caping for Turkey because my wife is Turkish, right? But let's really think about it. There's way more economic benefit for Europe to open those borders with Turkey, to allow people to come in, do business, do tourism, easily travel throughout the European Union and that sort of stuff. There's so much money that's left on the table by the Europeans just because of their xenophobia and Islamophobia and Turkophobia against the Ottoman people, right? The Turkish people, against the Anatolians, whatever you want to call them, right? There's so much of that in Europe, but they'll open up the floodgates for people that they see themselves in, right? Generally, somewhat mixed white Argentinians and the Chileans and the Peruvians. They can come all the time, right? They're half a world away, but they're allowed to come to Europe. That's because they see themselves in them. White, generally white, Christian, white adjacent enough, not Islamic, not a threat. They were the oppressed ones. They didn't do the oppressing, right? Which what the Turkish people did. So there's that in the Turkophobia, right, for the European mind. So yeah, there's all these sorts of things that the European nations generally are in together with, which is enforcing white supremacy on this world. We can look at what is happening in Israel and Palestine right now. It's just an extension of that. You have a generally white government of Zionist Israel trying to exterminate a semi-brown population of people in Palestine and in the West Bank, right? Under the name of, territory. This is their land. They were meant to have it. God said they were meant to have it. That's manifest destiny. That's what we experienced in the U.S. when the white folks showed up there, exterminated the Indians, and said it was God's destiny for the white race to control the North American continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific, right? That's what's happening in Israel right now. Settler colonialism. It's what happened in Australia, happened in New Zealand, tried to happen in South Africa, but our brothers down there stood up against that. So, yeah, white supremacy will continue to be a detriment to all people on the planet. And that's why Vaush's message is important. And I generally don't see anything wrong with it. As a black person, I'm not offended by it. If Vaush snuck in like an N word in there, which he might do, I would not be surprised if behind closed doors Vaush does drop N bombs, if he says racially insensitive jokes and that sort of stuff. But I watched his video before the stream. I watched his video before this stream, and he basically made some other very good points about how the creation of our racial caste system that we have in America has generally hurt all people. Right. I'm going to show this comment here from Jan Luca Adam. I don't know who you are, but he says, I love white people, and I think we love white people too, right, on this channel. We love all people. We have no hate here. We want to create a better world for all people. And I really think that that's what's in Vaush's minds too. Okay. So Mob Eternal said, what's coming, brother, this week? Okay. Please remember, guys. Please remember, guys. I am not your brother. I am nobody's bro, bruv, brother, none of that. I have one brother. I do not like when people call me brother, because you know what brothers do? Brothers kill each other like Cain and Abel. Just call me Simon. My name is Simon. That is my name. But this week, we'll have some movie reviews dropping. I'm working a lot as an English teacher and also as a writer for culturalist theory. So be on the lookout for some videos dropping on culturalist theory. Mob Eternal, you said, I'm sorry, but it's okay. It's okay. It's no worries, no worries. But I'll probably be doing some movie reviews. If you have a movie request, drop it in the comments. We're going to be checking out some stuff. Nelson Moreno suggested that we watch We Are Who We Are on HBO. And we started watching that. I watched the first episode a few days ago. What we're probably going to do for We Are Who We Are, my wife and I, is probably watch the entire series and do it all in one review, because I really don't know what to say from the first episode, right? But hopefully the show gets better. It's only 8 episodes, so we'll dive into it and review that. Maybe some more political commentary. I might do like a 1 hour live stream every day in between classes. Like I said, I've got a lot of work. I'm working in Budapest. I work as a writer. I work on YouTube. I work as an English teacher with private students. I work for 2 other companies that teach English as well. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a lot going on with me in my life. For people that say that, oh, black people are lazy, black people want everything given to them. I work 7 jobs. That is not a lie. If I really sat down and counted my streams of income, I have like 7 different jobs that I do. So I'm a hardworking black man, and I'm proud to be a hardworking black man, and I'll continue to do that. And I hope y'all continue to support me. And yeah, so Mob Eternal said the second is better. Are you talking about the second episode of We Are Who We Are? I hope so. I hope it's better than the first, because I'm not gonna lie, the little kind of autistic kid kind of annoyed me a bit. He kind of annoyed me a bit on the in the first episode. So Jan Luca Adams says, I love your videos, Simon. Can you get my friend Rudy Osbudelin? I don't know what that is. Is that a movie? Can you greet my friend? I don't know if you say greet or great. But if Rudy is a person, I'll say, hello, Rudy. I hope you're doing well. Rudy Osbuden, that's like a German name. Or that might be a troll. You might be trolling me by saying some racist slur here. I don't know what that means. But if you are trolling, once again, this goes to show how white supremacy and racism has affected people's minds, because, yeah, they are unable to actually have serious or mature conversations. They would just much rather troll. They would much rather play games than rather deal with real issues that affect all people, right? When I think about the videos that I made about the place that consistently gets views on my channel, Albania, right? I went to Albania. I did not commit any crimes against people in Albania. I did not hurt anybody in Albania. And this applies to all the other countries I went to: Serbia, Mauritius, Turkey, Kenya, Tanzania, Tunisia. I did not do anything wrong to the people. I was literally just minding my own business in this place. And then I got racial slurs and attacks hurled at me, right? So I am not going to allow anybody to call me the N word, attack my wife, attack my life, threaten my life, or anything like that. I don't care where I am. If I'm in Albania or Kosovo or Serbia, I'm going to speak my piece because I'm willing to fight and die over every single word that comes out of my mouth. So I made those videos about Albania, and you will not believe how many comments of people coming in saying I was about to go there, but not after I saw those videos. Or, nope, Albania's scratched off my checklist. And that goes to show that that racism that was inflicted towards me as a black person hurt that country's tourism. Because who knows? Maybe I encouraged somebody to go, maybe I didn't. But generally, now the idea is out there that Albania is generally not safe for black people. That's hurtful to their country. They did not have to be racist. They did not have to be hateful. They did not have to be even ignorant. They could have just minded their own business. But somebody is going to speak about it, and now that's hurt their tourism sector, like it might in other places as well. So that's what I just have to say about that. So yeah, I got class now. I'm gonna head back to work. It was fun chopping it up with y'all about this topic about Vosh. Let me know what y'all think. I know I have some very smart people out here who have some very good ideas, who are very how can I say this, eloquent in their words, who can see nuance, who uh, who have a different perspective. So I'd be interested to know what y'all think about what Vosh said. Me, generally, I don't have a problem with it. I generally agree with it. Let's try to teach white folks that the racism that they do against people is actually hurting themselves, just like in slavery, right? Think about how many white folks could have had money, could have had jobs, could have bought land, but instead they allowed a small class of rich white slave owning men to buy large tracts of land, import millions of free labor. And now we have a situation where those broke white folks still exist today. The descendants of the people, mostly in the South, who are whites, were not slave owners. Everybody knows that. They were not slave owners, right? But they allowed a system to happen where as long as they're poor and white, it's better than being black and a slave, right? Rather than having a job, they would rather, have let black people be enslaved than actually have jobs and earn money for their families and work themselves up the ladder, as they say, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. So that's just another example. But y'all let me know what you think. I'm out of here. My name is Simon Hill. Peace.